Here's a completely different version of the story with the same title and emotional kindness theme. A billionaire laughed and offered everything she owned to a stranger. The room exploded with laughter when she said it. After all, the man standing before her wore worn-out shoes, worked 2 jobs, and was raising his son alone. No one believed he could answer the question that had puzzled scholars, business leaders, and experts for years. But what happened next left a billionaire in tears and changed thousands of lives forever. Before we begin, welcome to Kindness Paradise. If you love heartwarming stories that remind us of the good in people, please subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us spread more stories of hope, kindness, and inspiration. David Carter lived in a small town outside Denver, Colorado. At 38 years old, he worked as a delivery driver during the day and stocked shelves at a grocery store several nights each week. Life had not been easy. 3 years earlier, his wife had lost a battle with cancer, leaving him to raise their 10-year-old son, Ethan, alone. Every day felt like a race against time. He rushed from work to school pickups, from homework sessions to grocery shopping, from paying bills to making sure Ethan never felt alone. Money was always tight. Some months, David wasn't sure how he would make rent. Yet there was one thing everyone in town knew about him. No matter how difficult life became, he never stopped helping others. If an elderly neighbor needed their driveway shoveled after a snowstorm, David showed up. If a family was struggling with groceries, David quietly left food on their porch. If someone needed encouragement, he always had time to listen. Many people wondered why he gave so much when he had so little. David always answered the same way. Kindness costs less than regret. One afternoon, while making a delivery downtown, David noticed a crowd gathering around the city convention center. Large banners displayed the name of billionaire entrepreneur Charlotte Hayes. Charlotte was one of the wealthiest women in America. She owned technology companies worth billions of dollars and appeared regularly on television. Curious, David stopped to read one of the signs. The event was honoring Charlotte's late father, William Hayes. Known as a brilliant businessman, William had left behind a mysterious riddle before he died. For 7 years, nobody had solved it. Anyone could attend the event and attempt an answer. David almost kept walking, but a volunteer offered him a free guest pass because several ticket holders had cancelled. That evening, David found himself sitting among CEOs, professors, investors, and journalists. He felt completely out of place. The event began with speeches about William Hayes' success. Then Charlotte stepped onto the stage. Behind her appeared a giant photograph of her father smiling warmly. Charlotte looked at the audience. "My father built companies around the world," she said. "But before he died, he told me that the greatest truth he ever learned could be expressed in one question." The room became silent. She pressed a button. The riddle appeared on a massive screen. What becomes larger the more of it you give away? The audience immediately began discussing possible answers. One expert suggested wisdom. Another argued it was influence. A famous author claimed it was love. Charlotte politely shook her head each time. Hour after hour, answers came and went. None were correct. Eventually, Charlotte sighed. Perhaps nobody will ever solve it. As she scanned the audience, her eyes landed on David. He was sitting quietly near the back. "You haven't said anything all evening," she said. People turned toward him. David looked surprised. Charlotte smiled playfully. "What do you think? Solve my father's riddle and take it all." The crowd laughed. Some even applauded the joke. After all, what could a tired delivery driver possibly know that experts didn't? David slowly stood. His hands trembled slightly. But when he reached the microphone, his voice was calm. "I think the answer is kindness." The laughter disappeared. Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Why kindness?" David thought about his son. He thought about his late wife. He thought about every person who had shown him compassion during his hardest days. Then he answered, "Because kindness grows every time it's shared." The room fell silent. David continued, "When someone helps a stranger, that stranger feels encouraged to help someone else. One act becomes two. Two become 10. 10 become hundreds." People listened carefully. You can give away money and have less of it. You can give away food and your plate becomes empty. But kindness works differently. Charlotte stared at him. David smiled gently. The more kindness you give away, the the more it exists in the world. It becomes larger because it spreads from one heart to another. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. She reached into her purse and removed a folded piece of paper. It was a note written by her father shortly before his death. With a shaking voice, she read it aloud. The answer is kindness. It is the only gift that becomes greater every time it is given away. The audience gasped. David had solved it. But Charlotte wasn't finished. She looked directly at him. How did you know? David shrugged. I didn't study business. The audience laughed softly. I just lived long enough to learn that people survive because of kindness. Charlotte wiped away tears. At that moment, she understood something her father had wanted her to see. The answer was never meant to be found by the smartest person. It was meant to be found by someone who practiced it every day. After the event, Charlotte spent hours speaking with David. She learned about his struggles, his son, and the countless ways he quietly helped others. The more she listened, the more inspired she became. Months later, Charlotte launched a nationwide program called the Kindness Chain. Its purpose was simple. Recognize ordinary people who quietly make life better for others. Teachers, firefighters, nurses, parents, volunteers, and neighbors began receiving support and recognition. Thousands of communities participated. And at Charlotte's request, David became one of the program's advisors. At first, he refused. He insisted he was nobody special. But Charlotte smiled and said something he would never forget. That's exactly why you're the right person. Years passed. The Kindness Chain touched millions of lives across America. And whenever people asked Charlotte about the secret behind its success, she always told the same story. The story of a single father who understood her father's riddle. Not because he was wealthy. Not because he was famous. But because he chose kindness every day. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. We don't need billions of dollars to make a difference. We don't need power, titles, or recognition. A kind word can change someone's day. A helping hand can change someone's future. A moment of compassion can change someone's life. The world becomes better every time kindness is shared. So wherever you are today, remember this simple truth. The more kindness you give away, the larger it becomes. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness creates the greatest miracle of all. If this story touched your heart, carry its message with you and share kindness wherever you go. You never know whose life you might change, and whose heart might be waiting for your kindness today. I have written the complete storytelling script in a reusable document format. Have you ever met someone whose answer to a simple question changed an entire life? What if a billionaire, standing in a mansion worth hundreds of millions of dollars, laughed and said, "Solve my father's riddle and take it all," never expecting anyone to actually answer it? And what if the person who answered was not a genius, a lawyer, or a business expert, but a struggling single dad who barely had enough money to pay his bills? Stay with me, because this story is about kindness, wisdom, and a lesson so powerful that it left a billionaire speechless. Before we begin, welcome to Kindness Paradise. If you enjoy heartwarming stories that restore your faith in humanity, please subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories with the world. Mark Thompson was a single father living in a small town in Ohio. Every morning before sunrise, he prepared breakfast for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, before heading to work at a local repair shop. Life wasn't easy for Mark. Since his wife had passed away years earlier, every responsibility rested on his shoulders. There were days when the bills piled up on the kitchen table, and nights when he stayed awake wondering how he would provide a better future for Lily. Yet despite his struggles, Mark had one habit that never changed. He was kind. He helped elderly neighbors carry groceries. He fixed bicycles for neighborhood kids without charging $1. He often gave away his lunch to homeless people he met downtown. Many people wondered why he kept helping others when he barely had enough himself. Mark always smiled and said, "Kindness is the one thing you can give without becoming poorer." One rainy afternoon, Mark received a surprising invitation. A famous billionaire named Victoria Reynolds was hosting a public charity gala in Chicago. Her late father had been a legendary businessman known for his intelligence and mysterious philosophy about life. The event included a unique challenge. Anyone attending could attempt to solve the riddle Victoria's father had left behind before his death. According to rumors, He had promised that whoever truly solved it would receive a reward beyond imagination. Most people assumed it was just a publicity stunt. But Mark happened to win a free ticket through a local community program. A week later, he found himself standing inside one of the most luxurious buildings he had ever seen. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Business leaders, celebrities, and wealthy investors filled the room. Mark felt completely out of place in his old suit. Then Victoria stepped onto the stage. She was confident, elegant, and one of the richest women in America. The audience grew silent. "My father spent his life building an empire," she said. "Before he died, he left behind a riddle. Thousands have tried to solve it. No one has succeeded." A giant screen lit up behind her. The riddle appeared. What is the only thing a person can keep forever by giving it away? People immediately began whispering. Some guessed money. Others guessed knowledge. A few said love. For the next hour, experts, professors, and business executives offered complicated explanations. Victoria politely rejected every answer. Then she noticed Mark standing quietly near the back. With a playful smile, she pointed at him. "How about you?" she asked. "You look like you've been thinking." The crowd chuckled. Mark felt hundreds of eyes staring at him. Victoria laughed lightly. "Come on," she joked. "Solve my father's riddle and take it all." The audience laughed even louder. No one expected anything from the ordinary-looking single father. Mark slowly walked to the microphone. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he looked at Victoria. "Your father spent his whole life searching for what truly matters, didn't he?" Her smile faded slightly. "Yes," she replied. Mark nodded. "The answer isn't money, knowledge, or power." The room became completely silent. "The answer is kindness." Some people frowned. Others looked confused. Victoria crossed her arms. "Explain." Mark took a deep breath. "When you give away money, you have less money. When you share knowledge, others gain it too. But kindness is different." He looked around the room. "If I help someone, that kindness stays with me. It becomes part of who I am. The person I help may pass it to someone else. Years later, people may forget my name, but the kindness continues." The audience listened carefully. Mark continued. "You never lose kindness by giving it away. In fact, the more you give, the more it becomes yours forever." The room fell silent. Victoria's eyes widened. Then something unexpected happened. Tears filled her eyes. She turned away from the crowd and looked at a framed photograph of her father displayed beside the stage. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Finally, she whispered, "That's exactly what he wrote in his journal." The audience gasped. Victoria opened a small notebook she had carried for years. With trembling hands, she read a passage written by her father shortly before his death. "Kindness is the only possession that grows stronger when given away. It is the one treasure a person keeps forever." The room erupted into applause. But Victoria wasn't applauding. She was crying. After the event ended, she invited Mark to speak privately. Inside her father's old office, she shared a secret. "My father wasn't looking for the smartest person," she said. "He was looking for someone who actually lived the answer." She had investigated Mark's background during the event. She knew about the free bicycle repairs, the meals given to strangers, the countless acts of kindness no one ever noticed. "You solved the riddle long before you answered it," she told him. Mark smiled. "I was just trying to do the right thing." Victoria shook her head. "No. You were showing the world what my father spent his entire life trying to teach." Over the following months, something extraordinary happened. Victoria created a foundation inspired by her father's message. Instead of focusing only on financial donations, the foundation celebrated everyday acts of kindness. Teachers, nurses, parents, volunteers, and ordinary citizens were recognized for helping others. And she asked Mark to help lead the program. At first, he refused. He didn't think he was special. But Victoria insisted. Thousands of lives were touched through projects that encouraged compassion, generosity, and community service. Years later, people still talked about the billionaire's famous riddle. But they remembered something even more important. The answer. Not because it was clever. Not because it unlocked a fortune. But because it revealed a truth that anyone could live. You don't need wealth to change someone's life. You don't need power, fame, or influence. Sometimes all it takes is a kind word, a helping hand, or a moment of compassion. And that is the beautiful thing about kindness. The more you give it away, the more you keep forever. If this story touched your heart, remember to share kindness wherever you go. A small act today may become the reason someone believes in goodness tomorrow. And who knows? The kindness you give away might be the greatest treasure you ever own.